Hello friends, and welcome to part 2 of Japan's PSA Iceberg, curated by yours truly, the person talking and speaking and, making the video. We're getting a little deeper in on this iceberg in the water, or, past the tip a little bit, I guess. So with that said, they're gonna start getting a little more spooky, scary, and, lost. Also, there's a few lost ones, so if you like creepy stuff, there's gonna be more of that the further we go down. If you dig creepy stuff, like stuff in the Do Not Search Iceberg series, then this may be something you also enjoy quite a bit, as we get deeper. Anyways, I am running on 4 hours sleep. This is the intro. Let's get started. The Lost Wanted Criminals broadcasts. These types of PSAs, often short bumpers aired late at night, exist in many countries to spread awareness of wanted, dangerous criminals and people who are missing. It's not surprising that this type of broadcast would exist in Japan as well, because, crime exists everywhere. There are actually a lot of mysteries and creepy urban legends that involve wanted or missing persons broadcasts, specifically the ones with the off-putting black and white, uncanny photos. It's also not surprising that a great deal of these broadcasts are lost media and that there are search efforts to try and recover them. These broadcasts were shown heavily every February from 1970 to around the mid-1980s. These were said to be shown late at night or in the evening. There is one source that claims Tokyo Broadcasting Station, or TBS, aired these around 5 or 6 p.m. between 1970 and 1985-ish. This is one testimony, and there's quite a few testimonies. Testimony makes it sound a little criminal. Accounts, that's a better word. Accounts. We're going with accounts. There are documented accounts on the Japanese Lost Commercial Wiki that I've been using as reference for some of these things in this series that recall that the broadcast began with some kind of siren or chime noise, something tertiary that would alert the viewer to, look at the screen. A narrator then supposedly says, "This is an announcement from the Metropolitan Police Department," or, something that translates to that, and then there's a blue background that appears, and then a black and white photo, a headshot of the criminal in question that is displayed in the foreground.
警察庁からのお願いです。梅内恒夫、24歳、爆発物取締罰則違反の容疑者、身長176センチ、痩せ型、やや猫背。この顔見たら110番。
The narration is then said to provide a description of the person, the criminal, and what they are wanted for. The narrator then says to call a phone number, and many accounts believe that this phone number was 110, and that the narrator said to dial it and call if they knew anything about this person, the criminal. There is a creepy recreation of one of these public broadcast announcements with the criminals that does exist online, and there are newspaper versions of these PSAs that have been found. These newspapers also confirm that the start date of these broadcasts was in February of 1970. Many accounts of those who remember these PSAs say they were very off-putting and even scary. I read a few comments of people who remember these and say they were pretty much nightmare fuel when they were children and saw them come on. Now, there isn't much info on which ones have been found or how many even exist to begin with. I do have a good feeling that a lot of these likely exist on VHS tapes from recorded programmings and, they just got caught in the commercial breaks during the programming. At the very least, I feel this would be the case for ones that aired in the early to mid-80s, as VHS recording was a thing then. With the 70s, it wasn't as commonplace, though it did exist. AntiDrug Egg PSA. A lot of Americans may be pretty familiar with the famous "This is your brain on drugs" PSA.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs.
This is kind of like that, but impactful in its own disturbing, uncanny, unpleasant way that's different from that.
麻薬、覚醒剤、シンナーなどを一度乱用したら人間の終わり。
So you see this egg with a face drawn on it rolling down a spiral staircase. As it rolls down the staircase, it's gaining momentum and continues down. One would even call it a downward spiral. This PSA features narration that does no better in calming the viewer down or preparing them for the horrors they are about to see. As this egg is rolling, the viewers hear narration that pretty much translates to, "Just one more hit, one more line of that powder, and you can kiss your life goodbye. You are no longer human." That last part, the part that says you are no longer human, is ningen no owari in Japanese, and as the narrator says it, the egg hits the ground and cracks open. And with that, the egg is dead, and the camera angle the creators decided to give us accurately displays the uncanny, unhinged nightmare fuel that tells the viewer that they should probably never touch illegal drugs. Because they're bad. The uncanny valley is a mysterious beast, and it should be feared but respected. A little unsettling facial features mixed with the unpleasant shock of something bad happening to thing with said facial features. Well, it goes a long way. Synchro Hand. And here we are again with another lost Japanese PSA. Lost Japanese media, ladies and gentlemen. It's kinda my thing. I enjoy researching it. While Hitogata and Joruri are the big lost PSAs that people have been looking for on the Japanese internet and, fueling horror stories on 2chan all the while. Or 5chan now, 2chan's kinda dead. There is one more lost PSA that's kind of up there in search and notoriety. This lost PSA is known as Synchro Hands, and it was actually discovered and confirmed to exist from that yearbook that had the Joruri screenshot. And what does Synchro Hands involve? One would assume it involves hands, and them being, in sync with each other. They would be right. Among its known attributes, aside from the whole hand deal, is that the ad has only been seen by people in the Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Tokai regions of Japan. The hand motions are recalled to be simulating the actions of a bird, another consistent recollection. Aside from this, there have been descriptions that suggest that there are two variants of the ad or two separate ads entirely with weirdly similar themes. The Japanese commercial wiki has a chart differentiating what the two ads could be if they are different. One is likely a PSA, though it's kind of unconfirmed what exactly it was a PSA for. The wiki just lists it as being related to undocumented life forms, maybe extraterrestrial life, endangered species, something like that, I don't know. So the exact reading for the phrase unidentified life that is in the article in the wiki is min kakunin seimetai. In case anyone wanted. It's vague, and it says events in relation to unidentified life. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, guys. And then there's the other ad that's said to just be a hand cream or some kind of cosmetic product. So, what are the similarities? Well, one is the similar years in which they were supposedly broadcasted. See, the one that's supposedly a PSA aired between 2004 and 2009. The hand cream cosmetic one, on the other hand, aired between 1998 and 2006, supposedly. Both advertisements are said to feature classical music, as well as the hand cream one being said to feature the song Swan Dances from Swan Lake. The PSA music is unknown, but people say it's classical in genre. And of course, there are the similar themes of hand gestures and some kind of finger puppetry type movements with the hands. The one that's a PSA supposedly had a hand rising up from the water and simulating a bird. The one for the hand cream or whatever supposedly had multiple hands that simulated birds. The PSA is said to have likely aired during the NTV news program, which airs between 6:30 to 7 in the morning. There's also a couple links comparing the lost PSA to other ads available on the internet, though these ones are confirmed to not be Synchro Hands. The Laughing Salesman PSAs. The Laughing Salesman is a lesser-known manga series by Fujiko Fujio, best known for Doraemon, though unlike Doraemon, however, it's not intended for kids and has more mature themes. Its original incarnation was a one-shot manga in the late 1960s, though multiple adaptations have been created since then. This includes anime adaptations in the 90s and 2010s and a TV drama. Heck, there's even video games. One on the MSX2, which was quite popular as a gaming computer back in the day in Japan, and even a Sega CD visual novel. The series itself is a dark comedy type series aimed at the slightly older seinen demographic that spotlights people who have faced hardship and never saw their dreams through in life. Moguro Fukuzo is a laughing salesman that offers them a second chance at life as long as they follow his conditions. If they do not, well, life just gets even harder for them as the laughing salesman gives them whatever they deserve. So yeah, there's a lot of laughing salesman media, some fairly well known and some not too well known. What's not as well known and was even possibly partially lost for a time are the laughing salesman PSAs involving street scams.
友達を紹介するだけで人儲けしようって誘われたことはありませんか？おいしい話には気をつけてくださいね。
There are two in total, dating back to 1991. These PSAs are similar to the previously mentioned Joruri in that they address the issue of street scams, and there was a lot of attention on this specific issue back in late 80s, early 90s Japan. Street scams being, the shady dude opening up their coat to sell you fake Rolexes or whatever, or, something else that's not real and shady. Not really something that's problematic today. At least not on the streets. The internet's kind of a whole other story there. So there was apparently a very brief search, to my knowledge, based on fleeting comments on articles pertaining to Joruri that stated that the laughing salesman PSAs were oddly similar in their call to action and the format of people on the street and in alleyways, and the supposed production by the Tokyo metropolitan government. Both PSAs are fairly short. One has the salesman talking to a man from a television screen on the street who is trying to scam people. He do be scamming though. The other one has girls walking in a completely blackened setting. The salesman talks and warns of catch sales, and it fades to black and shows the Tokyo Metropolitan Government logo. They're pretty short and simple. They even give us a snapshot of the issues of Japan in the early 90s. This time period was at the very start of the 1990s. Surprise, surprise, which is known in Japan as a missing decade for how poor the economy was and how difficult times were economically for many people. This was immediately following the luxurious and ridiculously lavish bubble era Japan had experienced in the 1980s. It's probably likely that a lot of people were naive and even desperate in these times, so these PSAs from that perspective make sense. Also bonus points because the laughing salesman was somewhat popular at this time. The NyanPaku Pledge. Having pets is great, let's be real here. You could go about your day doing stuff all by yourself, sure, but wouldn't it be better if some weird little dude was just kind of following you around and sleeping around your home as you did said things? Considering you do things at home a lot. It is very commonplace for people in Japan, particularly in urban areas, to live in small living spaces that are far smaller than what we're used to in, say, America. Because many people in Japan live in apartments and are out working quite a bit, having a pet can be a little difficult. But it's for these same reasons that cats are popular pets in Japan. They're small, you don't have to walk them, unless you want to. And they just kinda do their own thing throughout the day. You don't really need to watch them as much as you would like another animal like a dog. That, however, does not mean that they can do everything on their own, and here's where this PSA comes in. This PSA, again titled NyanPaku Pledge, urges the viewer to properly take care of their cats and not neglect the needs they may not know they have to begin with. Pets are a big responsibility, and they rely on us to take care of them throughout life, and these cats came together to sing and, made sure you know that. Parkour PSA. This one's kind of odd. It was one I've seen suggested online when I asked viewers if they were familiar with any impactful PSAs, and it's honestly, in my opinion, unlike the other PSAs I've watched thus far. While most Japanese PSAs rely on impactful visuals and exaggerated narratives to get their message across, this one leaves you a little uneasy. Like, you're not entirely sure what's going to happen because there isn't any big, hard-hitting, dramatic moment to behold. You just watch this girl scale a building and hope you're not about to watch her fall. The tension in this PSA kind of speaks for itself, though. Torch. Cigarette smoking has been very widespread and commonplace in Japanese society. While not as prominent as it was in the past, seeing businessmen huddled in these little smoking spaces or entering an arcade or pachinko parlor filled with smoke is not uncommon in the large urban spaces of Tokyo. Torch is a PSA from before the time of smoking spaces and showcases the danger of swinging that hot cancer stick around and potentially maybe burning the face of a child. So the idea of walking and doing something that disturbs those walking around you in a shared space is an aspect of Japanese etiquette. It goes far beyond cigarette smoke, and if you even eat and walk at the same time or drink your Starbucks at the same time instead of, sitting down or stepping aside, it's considered pretty rude, especially on the subway. There's a lot of things you shouldn't do on Japanese subways, a lot of things you would think you could do that just don't do them. There's actually a term for this. It's meiwaku, which basically translates to disturbing others around you, just, being rude, disturbing in that you're, annoying people. And that whole eating while you're walking thing I mentioned earlier, it's called tabe aruki, which, walking and eating rude, just like, walking around with a cigarette, something that is hot and on fire. Well, yeah, this PSA is a little exaggerated. It does make a good point. Child mothers and child fathers. If you're familiar with Japan as a society, you likely already know that the birth rate is very low and that a large portion of the population are elderly. This is why health emergencies are taken very seriously there. With that being said, the issue presented in this PSA isn't really a big one, as in not something you see a whole lot, at least from my perspective. The issue is teen pregnancy, and AC Japan brought forward the series, roughly titled Child Mothers and Child Fathers, to draw awareness to teen parenthood. One of the commercials is still lost, that being the child father ad, though the child mothers one is up on the web that is wide in the World Wide Web. See, that was in my script, and I'm not really sure what kind of joke I was going for there, but okay, yeah, the internet. Like the majority of Japanese PSAs, there's unsettling visuals about that really strike a chord, as well as weird you out a bit. Kareshi no moto, my ex's ex. This one is personally something I don't think many people want to think about, but the way this PSA is presented will likely make people think about it. And that, my friends, is why it's so uncomfortably effective. It's an anti-STD PSA from 2007 that delves into the elaborate lore of your ex's body count and how that could affect your physical health by, getting something. And this one doesn't present you with graphs or long monologues about the dangers of such diseases, just this.
彼氏の元カノの元カノの元カレ彼氏の元カノの元カレの元彼氏の元カノの元カレの元カノの元カレ彼氏の元カノの元カレの元カノの元カレの彼氏の元カノの元カレの元カノの元カレの元カ彼氏の元カノの元カレの元カノの元カレの元カノの元彼氏の元カノの元カレの元カノの元カレの元カノの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの元カレの
And that's a little anxiety inducing. Pointed finger. I originally thought this was a gun violence PSA when I first watched it, but then I realized that, it's Japan and that's not really that much of an issue. But what I found it to actually be about is kind of sweet and kind of interesting. I'll go ahead and let you guys watch it. So we have two white shadow people. Hito got the confirmed. And one's pointing at the other one as it's kind of down on its knees, and they just don't seem to be very happy. And then the message of it inevitably is to, be nicer to people. And when you blame things on people, you're essentially blaming it on yourself. So this could be interpreted in multiple ways. It could be a PSA for anti-abuse, or just, being nicer to each other. Maybe towards meanness on the internet, or some kind of anonymous setting, or just a general PSA telling people to, hey, be nice to each other. Which is sweet. Though I do feel this also kind of speaks to the Japanese mentality of just, being responsible for yourself and not causing a disturbance. Because, what if that person you're pointing the finger at did something really bad? Something that would get on the do not search iceberg, wink wink, nudge nudge, watch that series. I don't know, the sentiment is there for sure, it's just a little ambiguous, and that's where I find it a little confusing and interesting. Kitchen Mother. So here's where we get into the more unsettling ones, which may be something you guys have been waiting for, or maybe something you guys have been dreading. When doing these iceberg videos, I've found that the second tier is kind of hard to peg, I guess. Kind of hard to find content that really matches the kind of vibe of it. I hate saying vibe, but I'm sure you guys know what I mean. Kitchen Mother is an anti-drug PSA from the early 80s, which shows a mother with her child very much present and crying as she uses something. This is one I'm going to have to censor, though just the visuals enough, and I'm sure you can understand what's happening despite the censorship, are enough for you to draw your own conclusion as to what's happening.
最近覚醒剤は家庭の主婦や青少年サラリーマンを蝕んでいます。興味半分の一本の覚醒剤、それがあなた自身を廃人にしてしまうばかりか、あなたの家庭をも破壊します。
Now, I'm not going to go into this too much because I have already talked about this in my Do Not Search Iceberg series, as it is pretty notorious online and throughout the Japanese populace. However, it is insinuated that the mother is no longer with the child and that the child crying for help is unable to be helped. Like I've said 100 million times before, these ads are impactful, but they're impactful for a reason. They really want you to understand the dangers of the things they're talking about and for you to not do them in real life. The Cursed Kleenex Demon Baby ad. So this one's not really a PSA, but it's a pretty interesting little urban legend that's been around on the Japanese internet and such for quite some time, and I don't really see any other time in which I can kind of discuss this, so here it is as a little bonus. So before we get started, let me familiarize you guys with the term Oni, which is a Japanese demon, kind of an ogre-type creature. They're very common in Japanese folk tales. This baby is dressed like one of those, not necessarily a Western demon, more of an, Japanese Oni type demon. Kleenex of Japan made this advertisement and had it air in 1986. Though, unfortunately for Kleenex, this ad was quickly pulled off the air due to it disturbing a lot of people. And for good reason. Here it is. So, yeah. Pretty creepy, right? As I said, this ad was pulled from the Japanese broadcast rotation and wasn't seen for quite some time. 20 years from this date to be exact. Because of this, people online assumed this was some kind of urban legend or just media that didn't exist. But when it comes to unconfirmed or lost media, the internet can sometimes be pretty cool like that and just have videos like this surface randomly with no warning on video platforms. This is what happened in the year 2006, 20 years after the 1986 air date, when people could finally see this advertisement yet again. Now, some clarification was apparently done later on that specified that the baby itself, the Oni baby, was intended to be a reference to Ten, a character from Urusei Yatsura, which was very popular at the time, and it was in no way trying to upset or unsettle anybody in the way that it actually did. But, you know, it did, and now it's spooky urban legend. Yay! So that is it for this one, guys. I know this tier is a little short, but there's not really anything, like I said before, that I can really jam into it that makes it really fit and make sense, because there's a lot of creepy Japanese PSAs, and the next episode's gonna have mostly that, and it's kind of hard to be in this in-between place of like, oh, really well-known PSAs, and then, wow, that's mind-scarring PSAs, so, you know, it'd be like that. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. Look forward to episode 4 of the Do Not Search Iceberg, or tier 4, or part 4, or whatever you want to call it. I do know you guys have been waiting for it for quite some time. I've unfortunately had some issues with my health that have been really unavoidable and really impacted my ability to work. There was also the whole censorship ordeal that I went through quite recently with part 3. So I've had to be pretty strategic with how I present this one, so I do appreciate your patience, everyone. Thank you so much. I am sorry, but I can officially say you can expect that soon. It is almost done, because, you know, I know I'm gonna get comments asking about it, so just a little longer, guys. Anyways, that is it. It is sleep time for me, and yeah, see you in the next video, guys. Bye! And a shout out to all my Patreons. This includes Nicholas Allen, VGM, Sutagio VGM, Joka, Enegdra J. Reese, Donut Brewitt, Leon X8, Christopher Valencia, Justin Fura, PP, PPass, CCatag, I'm sorry, Quetzalcoat IFC, Andrew LaPena, VHS Vitch, Airfire, Grand Tactician, Good with the Stain, my dudes Kevin and Soko, and of course Bishonen Knife. Thank you so much to everyone who has contributed to my projects thus far. Really, thank you. It means so much.